So indeed, that's part of what we intend to discuss this morning, the Nigeria Press Council Act and also the Nigerian Broadcasting Codes are up for amendment in the National Assembly. And part of what it would seem that some proposals are also asking for is what you just heard the minister say there. A number of people have been up in arms, a number of associations actually have been up in arms with the National Assembly on this, saying that, look, this is going to restrict press freedom, this is going to criminalize being a journalist, and a number of other, things that they have found not quite right with the bill as being, the amendment as being currently proposed. But we have two gentlemen here to help shed light on this issue this morning. Mr. Christopher Iziguzo is the president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. You're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. And we also have with us Senator Bala Nala, who is the chairman Senate Committee on Air Force and former Senate Deputy Majority Leader. He's also a member of the All Progressives Congress. Senator, you're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Good morning, and good morning, viewers.
Well, Senator, you are one of those who have pushed for the amendment of the Nigeria Press Council bill. What are some of the things that you are looking to achieve with the amendments that you are pushing for?
I think I will start by entering a plea of not guilty to this charge. I am hearing for the first time that there is a proposed amendment to the Press Council and then the regulation by the minister, just as I'm hearing here. So I'm not part of those who are proposing the amendment, but because of the fact that it's going to be presented to the National Assembly, I express the hope that I will be part of those who will determine its fate on the floor of the National Assembly.
Okay, but you're one of those who have pushed for social media regulation.
That was 6 years back.
Do you still hold that stance today?
Well, whether I'm right or wrong in my proposal 6 years back is being defined by what the federal government is trying to do now. So I really don't want to push these things this way, but on this very platform, in this very studio, I stood here to tell Sheung that one day, the government that says it is not interested in that earlier proposal 6 years back will come back looking for it. Because no one who knows the Federal Republic of Nigeria and its configuration will sit down and accept a situation where some very few individuals will misuse the platform of social media to destabilize a country to which he has no alternate to go. What do I mean by that? As a citizen, you have fundamental human right to like or dislike the president of a country. That's your right. To like or dislike the government of the day. But can you find justification for saying that you don't like your country? I think I will leave this to the public to answer.
Well, you've just posed a rhetorical question, but the question can be rephrased. Yeah. Some people will say, is it possible to say you don't like your country as it currently runs or as it currently is? Because when people talk about restructuring, for instance, there'll be reasons why they'll say, we love this country, but we think it can work better. So aren't there two different things we're talking about there?
They are distinct and distinguishable. What I'm saying is this. As a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you may have some form of justification to say, I don't like the president. You may have some form of justification to say, I don't like the way the country is being run. But can you, in all honesty, find the same justification to say that you don't like the country in which you live in? A country worth living in is a country worth dying for. So, you see, this country is very difficult for people to speak the truth. If we have an entire body established for the regulation of print and electronic media, what makes you think it's a misplacement to have some form of regulation in the social media? We can as well say that we are not going to regulate leadership and anything, let them write whatever they like. But you see, journalism comes with some level of responsibility. And the underlying factor is that you must have a country before you can have leadership newspaper. You must have a country before you can have channel television. And therefore, it's the responsibility, collective responsibility of every citizen of the country to do whatever is humanly possible to protect the country first. This is my own. I hope I'm wrong. And I keep on hoping I'm wrong.
Well, sadly, I mean, from what you have already said now, you haven't seen the details of the amendments being proposed for the Press Council bill, have you?
I have not seen it.
Exactly. And you haven't seen the amendment because already it would seem that this sector has already been regulated. Broadcast stations do not exist on their own. They're regulated by the Nigerian Broadcast Commission.
Yes.
I don't think you have seen the amendments as being proposed to the broadcast code, have you?
I have not seen the amendment. Now, but you see, some people have opted to go online, to provide the services hitherto that we knew were only being provided by television stations and newspapers. Now, if for whatever reason, since independence to date, we have a full-fledged body regulating print and electronic media, of what benefit is it for a country to now sit down and say it will not regulate the other one, of which there are more people, who have access to that kind of information than we have people who have access to newspaper and television?
Okay, so let me come to you, Mr. Eziguzo. And this is a pretty difficult conversation because we are interested parties. I mean, my station will be an interested party, and I, as a journalist, will be very interested in this bill. But as much as possible, I'm hoping that we'll be able to have a conversation that lays it bare, a conversation that will be objective in general. We have seen the objections of the different media, associations that exist, for the interest of the media, kick against the amendment as being proposed. Are they allergic to regulation?
Thank you once more for having me this morning. Last week, we were at the National Assembly, and that was the public hearing organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Information. And it has to do with the planned move to amend the Nigerian Press Council Act, and of course that of the NBC. We are, from the NUJ perspective first, we did not really make presentation there because we were not properly invited to that public hearing. But from the NPO perspective, that's the Nigerian Press Organization, is made up of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, and of course, the Nigerian Union of Journalists. We opposed the planned amendment. We actually, from that angle, asked the House of Representatives and by extension, the National Assembly, to drop the move because, one, NPO is presently in court with the government as regards issues affecting Nigerian Press Council, and that we felt that it would be sub judice to begin to discuss the issues while they are in court, though the committee chairman had a different view about it. So from that angle, we said, stop for now. Let's dispense with the issues in court. But going straight to the question you've asked, whether we are allergic to being regulated, I don't think anybody is allergic to being regulated. What we are concerned here is, like, if you look at the issues in court, we said that government should not regulate the media. Allow the practitioners, allow the stakeholders to regulate themselves. Very simple. If you go to some other country, Ghana, for instance, here, the person heading the press council, of course, is a journalist. You understand? So, and we felt that when you allow us to regulate ourselves, it will be a lot easier. If you look at the proposed amendment bill, you'll be looking at areas where they want to even criminalize the journalism practice. For instance, if a journalist, breaches, so to speak, the ethical code, you want him to go to prison, and all that. We said, no, there are ways that we can sanction practitioners that breach the ethics. Very simple. We can suspend the person. We can also get NUJ to get the person's name struck out of the membership list. You understand? So instead of sending the journalist to jail. So these are areas the gray areas we felt we should address. Just like I said at the National Assembly last week when we were there, the minister was there and so many of them. I said that before we even zero in to public hearing, discussing the proposed amendment, discussing the bills, that we needed to have sat down as stakeholders. You get the NUJ, you get the Guild, you get the MPAN, of course the government representatives, all of us sit down together and clear the gray areas so that we can be on the same page. You understand? So that way, it is easier. Nobody is allergic to being regulated, but let us do that together. Recent developments sends shivers down our spines. If we cave in to this subtle attack, what could come after it may not be controlled by anybody. You understand? So that's why we are worried. Even when they talk about regulating the social media and all that. Ordinarily, one would have said there's no problem with that. You understand? Because if you go to other climes, these are very simple things. They do it. If you come and you must align with their own system. If it is not in line with that, you cannot operate the social media. It's very simple. But today, all the newspapers, all the broadcast stations are on social media. And if you just give them a blank check to regulate the social media, your guess is as good as mine, what will come out of it. Subtly, it will come, but nobody will be affected. We want to do it so that we defend our country, of which we don't have alternative, like he said, and all that. And we all clap our hands and say, okay, we are in cahoots with you. Tomorrow, you don't know what comes out of it. So there is that worry. That's why it becomes imperative that stakeholders must have to come together. We sit and agree that, okay, look at what we want. Make it clear so that all the parties will understand the thing before we now go to public hearing. But when you want to jump the gun, so to speak, gather people, like for us who are not invited properly, the Guild, they were not invited.
What do you mean by you're not invited properly?
Good. The letter of invitation got to us on the eve of the public hearing. And they had said that we are supposed to even submit a memo to them by 14th of June. So 14th had come and passed, and we didn't even have the invitation. Somebody now had to actually ask me, are you aware there is going to be a public? I said, I'm not aware. The person now had to get across because he has contact with the chairman of the committee. Say, do you know these people? They haven't received any invitation. They now had to send the invitation to the person. The person now had to send to us via WhatsApp on the eve of the public hearing. The Guild of Editors, they didn't get the invitation at all. Newspaper Proprietary Association of Nigeria, they also didn't get it. We all got it this way. And you want us to appear the next day to begin to talk about something you must have started planning over the weeks, over the months. I don't believe that they started the planning on the eve of that public hearing. You understand? So they didn't do the needful, and you want us to come and start talking.
So did you suspect anything untoward as a result of that?
Well, while we started the sitting or the public hearing, the chairman of the committee immediately apologized, but these are normal things. I don't want to play the devil's advocate. I don't want to suspect or whatever. He's apologized, but let us still do the needful. Go back to drawing board, meet with the stakeholders, have an understanding, have a template with which to work, then we go to the public. There's no problem with that.
Distinguished, do you want to quickly comment on that?
Well, unfortunately, the National Assembly has a process and is guided by that process. First, when a proposal is being put forward, irrespective of the source of the proposal, is put on the floor of the House for first reading. The assumption is that on the day of the first reading, a lot of people will have known that there is something being presented on the floor of the National Assembly that is coming up. The next thing will be for that proposal to be debated on the floor so that the floor will accept whether it's worthy of being taken to the second reading or not. And if majority of members agree that that issue should be taken for the second reading, then the bill is read for the second time. And then it's now referred to the committee for public hearing. Now, the public hearing is an opportunity for the public to come and say, we have agreed with this, we have not agreed with that, this is okay, this can harm Nigeria, this cannot. This is the process. And no matter how you try to do it, you cannot go outside the process because it's an established process.
No, what I mean is,
lawmaking.
When they now say, oh, we only got the invitation on the eve of the
That is normal. I can tell you.
That is normal?
Yeah, that's normal in this country. I have seen where I was invited for an event in July, and I got the letter in August. You get this mix of somewhere.
Is it proper?
It's not proper. Nobody is saying it's proper, but we all know that this happened.
When you know how important this sort of thing is, I mean, look,
certainly it must have been. See, the rule is that if you are going to do public hearing, it should appear at least on 2 national dailies. And normally the practice in the National Assembly is to take one newspaper that is predominantly read in the northern part of the country, and then one that has another wide coverage in the southern part of the country. So I'm surprised that that has not been done. In fact, I'm out of the country. I know very little. I was out of the country, sorry. I know very little about this process. But the process that is being put in place is in accordance with the established principle of legislative consideration of matters.
I'm sure
before the
that
National Assembly.
Journalists of all people will be aware of how the process of the National Assembly. We definitely have a number of our people who cover the National Assembly. But when you look at the number of bodies that have protested against this bill, Nigerian Press Organization, which is an umbrella body comprising the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, that's NPAN, Nigerian Guild of Editors, Nigerian Union of Journalists, International Press Council, International Press Center, alongside Media Rights Agenda, Center for Media Law and Advocacy, Premium Time Center for Investigative Journalism, a number of bodies. Isn't it just wise that, perhaps there needs to be a further consultation to know principally what are their objections? Because these are all responsible bodies. These are not bodies existing on just social media.
Well, let me tell you something that is very difficult for you to appreciate, maybe, because, like you have said earlier, you are an interested party in this matter. But you see, all these bodies you have mentioned are not people that are not, how do I put it? All these bodies consist of people, you understand, who have their representatives in the National Assembly. That's the assumption. The next thing is that every of these bodies is represented in the National Assembly either by way of press coverage or liaison offices. That's what obtains in a democratic setting. So, for example, if this bill has been on the floor of the House, as alleged, and it has passed first reading, second reading, and none of the journalists that is covering the House has published it in any way, or that it has escaped all of these bodies at that time, I think that is not...
No, Senator, indeed, this bill, the moment it came up, that's where the objections started coming up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
everybody is free to object. The public hearing is what affords people to go there. Nobody has been glass from attending the public hearing. Of course, he has said there had been some... I'm not defending the House. I don't know what exactly is happening, but I'm telling you what the process is. And the public hearing, all these bodies you are mentioning, consist of the public. So the opportunity has been presented by the National Assembly in the public hearing for them to go and register their objection and give reasons. And if they have more valid reasons as to why that proposal should not pass through, then the majority of members that represent them knows that this is the position of the public and therefore it cannot pass through. That's the assumption. You understand? So really, if everybody sits down in the comfort of his office or organization to object to what is happening in the National Assembly, it means the National Assembly will not function. But the process is designed in such a manner that every member of the public will have opportunity to go if he feels strong about anything that is presented on the floor of the National Assembly to go and make his views known. And that platform is what is referred to as the public hearing.
Well, now it has gone through public hearing. It's a stage that everyone needs to be very conscious of, because we know that after that, I do recall that the chairman of the House committee concerned said that the court matter wasn't going to stop them from proceeding with the process, so to speak. And I know that National Assembly has fought consistently to say, especially when court orders have been sought or taking matters to court has been sought as a way to stop them from doing certain processes, they have gone on to say that, no, you cannot use that to hold us back. I think that if there's even a court ruling on it, I'm not quite certain.
Well, let me tell you how this thing works. Assuming but without conceding,
yes,
that the National Assembly of a country, under its constitutional mandate, accept a situation where a court will give order and say, don't sit. You understand? Does it conform to common sense? Does it conform to common sense? For example, let us localize this matter. Let us localize this matter. Assuming but without conceding that I just decide that it's convenient for me to stop channel from broadcasting, and then I go to court and I say, please court, stop channels from broadcasting to the nation. Does it conform to common sense? We are three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the legislature, and the judiciary. Wherein lies the wisdom that the National Assembly will say, well, somebody, if in fact the easiest way for you to do it is to challenge the competence of the National Assembly to legislate on that. That is understandable, because you are now going to the grand norm to challenge that based on the Constitution, you do not have the legal capacity to proceed on this. But if you go and say we are in court for court to determine certain aspects, and because we are in court, the National Assembly should not function, I don't think that is what is necessary. That is the intendment of the framers of our Constitution. That cannot be the position, please.
I don't think that is what they were asking for. What they were saying is that the matter, well, you're here.
Well, you know, he said a whole lot, and I disagree with him along the lines of his argument, no doubt. When he said you didn't invite stakeholders to a public hearing is normal, well, I don't want to engage him with that. It is an abnormality, no doubt about it. Now, when you have such a public hearing, you needed stakeholders to make inputs. And that's why you expected to invite them. In the letter of invitation, you're also going to attach a copy of the proposed bill so that they are going to submit memoranda. Very simple. That's the essence.
Is that the process, Senator?
Well, I have stayed 8 years in the House of Representatives. I have stayed 6 years in the Senate. I have been a member of the Rules and Business Committee of the House of Representatives for 8 years. The process is that the bill, the invitation for public hearing will be published in 2 national dailies, because we, again, in the spirit of saying, let us cut down cost of governance, we do not want to put it on every page. We say, okay, which is the most widely read newspaper in northern part of Nigeria, put it. Which is the most widely read newspaper in southern part of the country, put it there. The bill is a public document. Everybody has access. You can go to the website, you see it. You can go to the National Assembly and request for it. It's a public document. Once anything is presented on the floor of the National Assembly, it's a public document. And like he said, the invitation, what I said is normal in this country is to say that letters can be delayed during the process of delivery. I'm not saying it is normal not to invite people who are directly affected with what you are deciding in the National Assembly. That's not what I'm saying. But it is really surprising to me that channels covers the House of Reps and the Senate. All the newspapers you see here have their representatives there, and this matter affects them directly. And that somebody will say that he has not received a letter.
And channels should go and receive the letter meant for MPAN?
No.
Channels should go and receive the letter meant for Guild of Editors?
No. But
channels should go and get the letter meant for NUJ?
Wait, Chairman. The fact that this is on the newspaper, really published, you understand, shows that you have a responsibility not to wait for the letter. to go to the National Assembly and say, look, I am this. We have had so many public hearings where people didn't even come with memo. But because they were there in their capacity as a representative of an organization, they must be heard. But if everyone says that he must get a letter, let us be honest, let us be sincere. The system here does not in any way guarantee that when Channel writes letter to Na'Allah, Na'Allah will get it within the time. In fact, let me tell you, even within the National Assembly, I have had senators who have invited me to a function and I get the letter that is within the National Assembly after the function must have taken...
Let's take a break now. There'll be huge questions as to what system they're using, because we all know in the private sector that when you want things delivered and you want them delivered on time, there are systems to get them done. Let me quickly I want us to bring our minds to some of the issues that have been raised that are causing a lot of furore, if you'd like, with this press council bill. Distinguished, I'm sure that you'll be able to sympathize and maybe understand when journalists talk about this, some of the proposals. For instance, the National Assembly, the Senate, I'm sure, regulates itself.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they are asking that, the profession of journalism be allowed to regulate itself. Do you think there should be a problem with that?
No. Let me tell you, all professions of the world have a self-regulating mechanism. That's a fact. We can't run away from. I'm a lawyer, and I know how we regulate ourselves. I am a pilot. I know how we regulate ourselves in the aviation industry. So it is not out of place to say that journalists should be allowed to regulate itself. But like I have told you, I have not seen this bill. I have not seen the proposal. And I have not seen the reason d'etat for presenting that proposal to the National Assembly. But what is important and which we must not run away from is the fact that that bill is there. And if it is there, then what is our concern? One of the concerns he raised, and which I share with him, is that you cannot say a journalist will go to jail simply because he erred maybe in reporting something inaccurately, because that is not what obtains in other crimes. Rather, the council should be able to sanction him, you understand, for doing that kind of act. But you see, I don't want to comment on what I have not seen. This one, I'm only picking it from what he said, and I believe in him because he is the chairman of Nigerian Union of Journalists, and there is no how he can say that he does not have reasonable understanding of the provision that dictates that someone should go to jail for maybe inaccurately putting something on the pages of newspaper. I don't share that. So like I have said, there is nothing wrong in allowing professions to regulate themselves, because all over the world, professional bodies are always allowed to have a self-regulatory mechanism within the system.
Let's flip this to Lagos now. My colleagues have questions. Gentlemen.
Well, yes, thanks, Mark. Senator, let me just ask, because, I mean, you said earlier that, yes, you have not seen this, MPC amendment, but at least you have pushed, according to you, for some sort of social media regulation. And maybe this will take us back to some of the procedures as well. For that particular regulation that you had in mind, was it a personal thing, or maybe something from your party, or members of your constituent pushed for it and said, well, Senator, we have seen these issues and we think that social media should be regulated in the way that, I mean, this and that way? How did that come up for you?
I like that question. You see, whether you, I don't know from the point of view you are viewing it, but as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, if you carefully look at the oath of office I have taken, and you carefully look at the rules of the Senate and the Constitution to which I pledge that I will uphold, protect, and defend, whenever I see anything that has capacity to, injure, let me say, the structure of this country, then I have a responsibility to propose a law, because the major function of the parliament is to make law and order for the good governance of the country. And therefore, we cannot sit down and allow a situation where we have seen reasonably that this consequentially is going to affect, the peace and order of the country, and then you say, because it is not pushed by my constituency or by any other, how do I put it, group, then I should sit down and look at it. I felt it was a responsibility that I had as a senator, and I did it. And you see, and I have no apologies over, and I will never apologize for this position I have taken, because I know that by today, the consequences that I saw when the appetite for the use of social media has not grown to this level at that time, avoidable things that ordinarily we should have taken as leaders, which we decided out of either political convenience or whatever to jettison. Today has done more harm to
Senator,
this country.
I get you. I get the point. So you're saying essentially this was a personal thing. You saw issues and you thought, personally, I need to resolve this. But I mean, this is a democracy. We have leaders because people put the leaders in that position, essentially. I mean, we have elections from time to time to elect our leaders. So democracy at the root of it is a government of numbers. If 10 people say they want something and 2 people say they don't want it, then the 10 people will have their day. Naturally, the 2 will have their say. That's what democracy is all about. So if you're saying that this was a personal thing, did you run it by maybe members of your constituencies to say, well, this is what I think. Do you think it's a good idea? Should we go ahead? Did you have the backing of the people for that regulation?
You see, when you as a member of parliament proceed to do an action, you are confidently aware of the fact that there is a process for it, like I have outlined earlier. So those members that I have discussed with may not necessarily be members of my constituency, but may be leaders of thought in this country. And let me tell you that I didn't just come up with that from nowhere. I have discussed with a lot of people to look at the initial consequence of what we were having. A lot of people were losing their lives for reasons that are avoidable, and I felt that something needs to be done. And I remember that I even called a meeting of some leaders to ask, can we in all honesty say that we have a regulatory body for newspapers, print and electronic media, and then we will sit down and leave the palace of social media open for abuse and the consequence that will befall the nation? And a lot of people felt, let's have some form of regulation. And I said, okay, I was going to introduce it, believing that every section of this country has a representative in both the House and the Senate. And the bill has to pass in both the Senate and the House before it can become a law. So it's something that is thrown to the public. When the public rejected it, little did they know that the consequence that will follow will not be palatable to the public. What I am saying is that no person in this country who will honestly talk and will say that I have not been vindicated at this level of our political development in this country with the introduction of some form of regulation for social media.
Right. I just wanted to establish the process of, lawmaking for a lot of people, just to see how some of these bills come up, ahead. But I'll come to Mr. Izeguzo in a moment. But just one more thing, Senator. So the way these issues are, approached from time to time, it paints a picture as though, they are high on the list of things that are threatening this nation. For example, you say social media, people have lost their lives. And a lot of people look at insecurity that we're facing right now, and they try to link social media to that, and they begin to wonder, how is social media responsible, for example, for the loss of lives which you mentioned? We have issues of inflation, for example. The price of food items in the market is skyrocketing so much that people are thinking, what is the National Assembly doing so fast to ensure that these issues are sorted, issues that concern them directly? So before I take this back to Mr. Izeguzo, just how important is the role of social media, the press, in this challenge we're facing as a nation, insecurity, economic challenges, and the rest?
I think you have to distinguish between the two. In the first place, the issue of insecurity that is facing the country is not unique to Nigeria. It's important for us to understand. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, I was reading, in fact, on channels itself, that about 136 people were killed in Burkina Faso. These issues are everywhere. They were compounded by some form of policy, government policies, and then some form of COVID effect on dislocating of a lot of businesses and the rest. That's a different matter entirely. What we are saying is that there has been occasion where fake news have been put on the social media that generated crisis, leading to death, you know, of a lot of people. So you have to distinguish between the two. And I'm saying that the National Assembly has done so well, as far as I'm concerned, on our intervention as it relates to security. We have done not less than 4 retreats. All our recommendations were made public. We have given them to those who ordinarily have the responsibility to implement them. So, and I think in that line, we have done our best. But whether that best has translated into something that the Nigerians can see clearly is a different matter, ballgame altogether. But the issue of insecurity is not unique to Nigeria. You know what is happening. You know the instability all around Africa and certain parts of the world. These issues has more to do with the economic dislocation of the structures that were hitherto supporting a livelihood of people. So in what way can you blame anyone? What I think we should do is that every responsible Nigerian should put hands on deck to ensure that we overcome these challenges. And in whatever form you can contribute, is the responsibility of every Nigerian to so do.
Okay, Mr. Ezeguzo, so let me just ask you, we're being dispassionate here to, attack the issues objectively, as it were. So social media, the press, broadcast, and the rest, just how important is it in the scheme of things? I mean, how much is it responsible for the challenges Nigeria is facing now? And this is objective. I mean, you have access to information. You've been a journalist for a long time. So the trends you have seen, just how has social media, the press, and broadcasts been responsible for the issues we're facing?
Well, thanks so much. You cannot undermine the importance of the media generally, be it broadcasts, be it print, be it social. They play strategic roles in our daily living, no doubt about it. And taking a cue from the views expressed by the senator with me here, one little slip in the media could cause a major uproar in the system. There's no doubt about it. Like he said, fake news can culminate in crisis, be it religious, be it tribal, be it political. One fake news. I recall in one state, journalists reported about killings in a particular area at that particular time, and of course tried to attach a particular tribe as being involved in the killing. And that culminated in reprisal, which of course led to death of people. It was later discovered that there was really nothing in the first place. Just he got a call from somebody that was on a bicycle somewhere and said, people are dying at so place. And he took it. He reported it. And it was later discovered to be fake. So that could cause problem. Now, if the media decides to report panic, naturally there will be panic in the land. If the media's perspective to reporting is tension, then there will be tension. If you are going to instill fear via your reportage, there's going to be fear in the land. So, however you look at it, the media is strategic in whatever it is that we are having. That's the truth, because it's the real role of the media to inform, it's the role of the media to educate, of course entertain. It's the media that will mobilize. It's the media that will shape the system. That's why we are described as agenda setters. That means you set the agenda. If you set a negative agenda, that is what flies. If you set a positive agenda, that is what flies. So, be it social, be it broadcast, be it print, media is media. So, we play strategic role, and those roles we play cannot be undermined in any form.
Tibuzo, you also know that the concerns of government are genuine. This whole fake news, hate speech thing has been going on all over the world, no doubt, for a good number of years, and Nigeria no less. Now, given the all of the issues that we have, some progress that may or may not be made by government at various levels, federal or state, and if all people see is bad news, so to speak, which, some say sells faster than good news, then there could be a problem. But can we give a little attention to the real issue at hand, which is the proposed amendment to regulate online media? Underlined online here. Now, the regular media, the regulated media is there with the MPC, NBC Act as they are. But the concern is the online media. And don't also forget that citizen journalism is quite big now, which is actually the concern. And you have also referenced an example of fake news that's taken the day. Most people will get information and circulate that information without verifying before they circulate. How do you think that should be addressed, especially by the regulated media?
Well, that's why we felt that in this discourse, it's not going to be a government responsibility alone. It must involve some level of stakeholding. The stakeholders must come together and fashion out the best strategy that would help in regulating the online media. That's the focus of this particular intervention, the online media. Today, the broadcasts, the print, all of us are there in the social media, online. There's practically no traditional media that does not have a presence in the online, across the online platforms. So it's not a question of citizen journalists only being involved now. Everybody is involved. So that means all of us are involved. We are all stakeholders, and we must come together and design the best strategy that will help in checking the negatives that we get from the online media. That's what we're saying. Regulating the online media is no problem, but we have our worries, we have our concerns. If we allow government to completely decide how these regulations should take place, there's going to be some problems. That's why if we agree and design a template and say, okay, look at the process that we've got to take, look at the strategies that we're going to take, that would make a whole lot of meaning, so that all of us would be bound by it, that we have agreed that these are the steps that we must take towards ensuring that we get some level of responsibility in the media, so that it's not just thrown open. Of course, your guess is as good as mine as to what it is going to cost to the polity. So there's a strategic thing we must do. It's not about ambushing people, gathering people overnight to say people should gather at a particular place in the name of public hearing. No, people must be prepared early enough. It's an abnormality for you to organize such a gathering and you didn't get those people that the same thing would directly impact on early enough. So let's come together. I recall also having this discussion with the Honorable Minister of Information. I told him clearly. He said that they've tried it in the past, it didn't work. He had come with the idea that people should go out of the court, let's sit down and talk. I said there is no end to a peaceful resolution of issues. There is need for us all. It can originate from him. It can originate from the legislature, the National Assembly. It can also originate from us, so that we come together and dialogue. There must be a form of dialogue. Let us find a best way out of these, using Maope's this in Fiore, so that we'll get out of it and have something that works for us. We look at the templates they are using in other climes, in Asia, in Europe, in America, in other parts of Africa. And of course, we are not an island. We can borrow a leaf from them and get something that will work for us.
Well, Mr. Exo.
Now we are already at third reading. It has gone through. It has gone through third reading already, and
no, it hasn't.
Second reading.
Second reading. Well, it has already gone to the third process, which is the public hearing.
No, see, when it goes through the public hearing,
yes,
it will still go back to what we refer to as clause by clause consideration.
So, but the major thing right now is this. At the public hearing, people are supposed to come and state their objections,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
How much of an influence does that have in the final clause-by-clause consideration?
So much of that, because ordinarily, in writing the report to the plenary, the clerk of the committee is supposed to make available the entire proposals that have come from the public in a way that the bill itself will be recouched to accommodate those concerns. So it is when that bill now comes for what we call consideration that it will be taken clause by clause. And if there is any member who objects to a clause, then it is recouched to capture the necessary intendment of that bill.
But it's never going to come back again to public hearing.
It's not going to come back to public
hearing. Well,
we're
not really done with the public hearing.
But I think with the apology that the chairman has done, I'm sure they may have a rethink to possibly maybe do a mini stakeholders meeting maybe before the final concern. I don't know what they want to do about it. But what is important is that at the public hearing, concerns have been raised about the invitation that have been sent to people, and he said the chairman apologized, and I am hoping that from that flow of apology, he should know that something needs to be done to give some credibility, added credibility to the process, and that can be done by calling the stakeholders, for example, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Guild of Editors, and whatever, and then sit down and say, look, this is our concern, what concerns do you want to put there, and then we can recouch it before presentation to the Senate. It's not out of a process.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is likely to happen, given the objections?
Well, after his explanations and all that, he also gave time for some of the organizations, stakeholders, to submit their own, make their own inputs, you know, and that we also intend to make, you know, some of the views that I've expressed here, of course, will be contained in our own position document, which we'll give to them. But like we said, it's not just about coming up with amendments. At the end of the day, when you do that and the stakeholders still decide to frustrate it, there's nothing you can do about it.
Just quickly, just before we quickly flip this back to Lagos, I'm wondering, what do you think? Oh no, let's quickly go to Lagos first.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Just one question for Senator Nala. I'm concerned about the impact of that regulation being considered on Human Development Index, Nigeria's Human Development Index. Take a look at this information from NetBlock's Senator, which talks about the fact that we have lost so far to the suspension of Twitter in Nigeria in the past 16 days, almost 35 billion naira to just one social media tool. This is how much we have lost, and so many livelihoods attached to it. Given this loss, given this consideration, how far-reaching do you think, you know, this kind of regulation you are talking about would go in affecting positively the Human Development Index in our country?
Well, I think that question will have been fair enough if it has taken into consideration the fact that I have already said, I have never seen this regulation. I have never seen it. I have never read it.
Social media regulation at some
I'm
point.
hearing it for the first
Senator,
time
just
here.
1 second. You once proposed social media regulation at some point. Given this figure, how far-reaching do you think it would have gone?
Given what?
How far-reaching do you think it would have gone, given this, figures that we have just shown you, if your bill, the bill you proposed, had come to light?
No, if the bill I have proposed, that was 6 years back. And I'm sure from 6 years back, it will have enhanced more our ability to harness social media for the development of this country. We were more concerned about the negativity of the misuse of social media than the positivity. And the regulation, nobody said nobody should use social media. What we are saying is that any person who, let's say, create a group where fake news are being deliberately inserted to destabilize the country, that person should be called to account. That's what we are saying. And you can never compute the damage that one fake news can do to this country in terms of development. How long does it take to produce a professor? And then you put fake news and he's on the road, and then a stark illiterate will come and murder that kind of person on the road. And you say the country is progressing? It's not. So the ability, the thinking was that we should protect the majority of the public who mean and wish well our country against the tyranny of the few who see nothing good in their own country and are bent on using fake news to destabilize it.
Let me quickly ask you this, Mr. Ezugozo. You've talked about how the media can self-regulate. So far, so good. Do you think that we've shown a good example of what is possible with self-regulation even before the proposal of this bill?
Well, I think at a point there was even an attempt at having an ombudsman, to help in this with this process. It didn't fly well because of some issues that bother with funding and all that. No doubt about it. Yeah, we've tried it in the past. It didn't really, fly very well. But it still can be done. It still can be done. All we needed was for government to be on the same page with us. Of course, government will make their own contribution. When we self-regulate, it does not really mean that we are going to completely sideline government involvement. If you have a process, let the practitioners, let the professionals themselves drive the process. It does not alienate government from the process. So when these teams, these people come together, form a collective, it will be easier for us to operate. If you still leave it in the hands of government, the professionals, the practitioners are going to cry foul. If you also leave it solely in the hands of the professionals, government somehow will also complain. So that's why we say there is a need for the parties to come together, but let the professionals drive the process.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Senator Bala Nala is the Chairman, Senate Committee on the Air Force and former Senate Deputy Majority Leader. And we also had with us Mr. Christopher Ezugozo, who is the President of the Nigerian Union of Journalists.